It's interesting, the homelessness. It seems like as a city commissioner, 10 of the last 12 years, that it's gotten very little coverage in Owensboro, and I find it interesting that it's. I'd say the last 6 months in particular, it seems to have gotten more coverage. It's a very real problem in every community. It's a very real, at some level, a cultural problem. Um, I served on the Bulwer Center's board. The first time I ever ran for office, I think, was '96, and I lost that primary. Um, and but when your name's in the paper like that, people think, oh well, he might be a good board member. So somebody at the Bulwer Center called me and asked me to serve on their board, and I served on that board for 6 years, and it was a very interesting learning experience. I learned that homelessness is real because prior to that, I really had no personal experience with homelessness. Um, I recall going to Lexington and Louisville where I had family members, and I'd see homeless people on the streets, and I thought, well, we don't have that in Owensboro. Looking back, I do remember. Certainly, we have poverty in Owensboro. I recall when I worked at a local drugstore here in Owensboro, in my college days, that we had some. I guess for me, that was my first exposure to even real poverty. Uh, some would say I grew up poor as one of 12, the 12th of 13 kids, and but Mom always said we were so blessed to be raised on a farm because we could raise all our groceries. We had always had a cow, and we could raise a pig and slaughter it, and have the product of that animal, and so we, despite not having lots of money, we had everything we needed. But when I came to town and I was going to Brescia, living on campus, working at the drugstore, I got to see a different element of our culture, a different element of our society. And my eyes were really open when I served on the Bulwer Center board. One of the things Miss Rosemary Lawson used to do is she would invite she called them clients, but one of our residents that lived there, to come and give us a witness talk every board meeting each month, and that was very moving, and it was a way, even as a board member, and so I was more aware than I had been as prior to being a board member, to hear these personal testimonies really put a face on homelessness and the reality, and help me understand where homelessness originates. What I learned is that most homelessness is tied directly to addictions. Uh, for We referred to it at the Bulwer as life skill people with life skill problems that just didn't know how to do things that most of us take for granted. Back away when somebody says something that's hurtful rather than go for the throat. Um, because that's in the workplace. You're not going to be employed very long if you don't just back away and walk to another room and say, well, that blankety blank, kind of under your breath, and then you go on, which is what most of us learn to do. And so there's very real issues that these individuals face, and as far as I'm addressing homelessness there, now what role should county government play in it? I really believe that government's role should be minimal. It should be more of a, what can we do to help you all coordinate among yourselves, rather than here's a big wad of money or here's a new program that we're introducing. And the reason I say that is because I think that the care to the homeless community, just as it's been done so long in this community, and I feel like the reason that we haven't seen those individuals, like I mentioned when I've been to Lexington and Louisville, is because for the most part we have caring people in this community who have gone way above perhaps our peer communities in what we do for people that are in need, and giving them a place like St. Benedict's, giving them a place like the Patino Shelter, giving them a place like the Bulwer Center. You know, those three. I know Oasis is another one, and you're not necessarily homeless in the sense of you can't afford a home. Oasis is a little different, but a lot of times the same issues are involved with Oasis that are involved with the other shelters. And the reason I say that the government's role should be limited is this, because just as when we had the brief time that St. Benedict's wasn't open, they had the tent shelter down the street from the Patino Center, got a lot of press coverage. Somewhere in there I saw that somebody had left Michigan or something and come down here. And I thought, you know, if all the homeless of America thinks Owensboro and Daviess County is the place to be, then we're going to wind up with all the homeless people here. And I don't think we want that, and what it would do to our culture, because, as again, many of these individuals suffer from some types of addiction, some type of mental problems, psychiatric problems in some cases, and to have all of those from all of Kentucky or all of the surrounding counties to say, hey, let's go to Owensboro. I hear they take care of us. It would put a huge burden on us. But that having been said, I do believe it's appropriate for us to deal with our own and to, when those people are identified, to do what we can to assist them.
Okay. But I think you've covered this, but you think that role for government is primarily coordinating response and perhaps financially supporting these other agencies, private agencies, as opposed to county government taking on operationally.
Absolutely. And the reason I say that is because one of the things that happens, and it kind of jumps back to our downtown, the convention center, you know, anytime government's involved and there's a financial shortfall, the only answer is to raise taxes. Whereas if a private group does it, whether it's the three of us sitting here or any church group or nonprofit that wants to take on this problem, or in the case of the convention center, you know, previously Mr. Green did that. And when they have a dilemma, they address it. You know, whether it's going and begging harder for, hey, we need your help, or working smarter. And for many years, you know, Mr. Green was able to make his place, you know, a showcase for Owensboro. Now, obviously, after his death, it kind of fell into disrepair. I think that it never had another owner that had the passion that he had. But and that's the other thing, is when you have individuals, what I found when I was on the Bulwer Center board, many of those people that serve as board members, that serve as employees within those organizations, if they've never been homeless, they've known somebody who's been touched by homelessness. And one thing that I learned from when I served on the board, our staunchest supporters financially were people whose loved ones had passed through those doors, you know, and they were grateful that there was a place where their loved one at the darkest hour of their life, because, you know, the Bulwer Center motto was a home for new beginnings. I mean, you truly were at the end. You had burned all your bridges. You had nowhere else to turn when you went to the Bulwer Center. And so those people were deeply grateful, and many of them were very strong financial supporters.